Hey, how you all doing? Let's do it to it. Okay. We're going diving into a new section called a space gaining pawn center might be a target. A space gaining pawn center might be a target. Space is created by expanding the pawns. If you think of a line of pawns as a fence, you will easily understand the concept of territory beyond your fence, belonging, being yours. So, if you have a basically what they're saying here is you can easily understand the concept of territory behind your fence. Sorry, not beyond, behind your fence being yours. So, what we're talking about is I'll pull up an edit board and I'll show you here. We'll clear the board off really quick, and then we're going to put some pawns like this. All this territory here, all this here is all ours. This here, this here, this territory, this, this, and this. That's all. This is all our land, everything. And this is considered our fence right here. This is the fence that Jeremy Silm was talking about. In the early 18th century, no, in the 1800s and early 1900s, a big pawn center was thought to be advantageous in almost every situation. And however, I construct how could a construct basically a pawn chain like this? How could this be good? That's kind of what they were thinking about. Now, how can a constricted pawn fence be? How could a constricted pawn fence not be good? How could a constricted basically pawn fence not be good? That's what they were saying in the 1800s and the early 1900s. That it was great to have this much space. Space was like outstandingly good. However, in the 1920s, a group of players, Nedved, Reddy, Alekhine, Bogojoba, and Grunfeld and Bayer, turned this pawn center is good in your head, basically on its head. Basically, what they're saying is that you think it's good, but I can attack it. These those hypermoderners basically realized that one could allow the opponent to build a way build a wall what we have there, only to have it placed under pressure from a distance by a combination of pawns and pieces. One of the most powerful demonstrations of a center being laughed at and treated like a target is the Grunfeld defense. Though this new opening first appeared in 1922 when Grunfeld beat Alekhine with it, it was first employed. Beat Alekhine with it. It was actually first employed way back in employed way back in 1855. So the pawn chain that we're going to be going over was employed all the way back during that time, and so let's dive into it. Appreciate your patience with my a little bit of reading there. Sometimes it takes me a second to get everything out. I read a little too fast, but I want to get the concepts down so we all can understand them. Okay, these are the players here. Let me make sure I have the spelling of the players right. Yep. There we go. Let's enlarge it. So D4, F6, C4, G6, AC3, and then D5. This is the Grunfeld. But the funny thing was, it was employed all the way back in 1855. It got named after Grunfeld, I think, when he beat Alekhine, if I'm not mistaken. E, Bishop G7, Knight F3, castles, C takes D, Knight takes D, Bishop E2, Knight takes C, and pawn takes C5. Castles, C takes, and Knight to C6. White has a firm pawn center, but it's held at bay by Black's pieces, which apply pressure from deep within their own camp. So here is what they're saying. This is applying pressure here, here, here. So the pawns really can't advance, and this also, this has some attack in the works. So Bishop B2, Bishop G4. This is actually a mistake by Black. D5 is actually considered to be an equal game. Rook C1, Rook C8, Bishop A3. This actually pins the pawn. See, Black wants to kind of basically open the center by later playing E5, but this bishop move stops E5 because it attacks right on through to the rook, which would hang. Queen A5 attacks, and now Queen B3, that protects, and now there's an attack here and an attack here. Rook F E8. This is actually a blunder, and I'm sure there's a combo that comes from this. Yeah, Rook C5. Yeah, the queen's almost trapped here. Queen B6, Rook B5, and the pawn will fall. Queen C7, Knight G5. A tremendous. I knew this would end up becoming a problem here. This pawn right here. Bishop takes E2, and then Black, for some reason, White blunders right back. This is a blunderish move. It's not the best move. I like this one here. King H there, and then Knight to E6 is an explosive move. Something's gonna have to give. Like if the queen moves here, that's mate. And so if the queen really can't defend both spots, it's over. This is done. So he'll probably try to gain material here. and there's mate. So black actually missed the move and played a double question mark themselves. Knight d8 actually holds everything in place. Rook c5. Takes. Rook e1. And bishop to c. Clearly, clearly better for black. This is better for black. Now knight to h6 check. This sets up, I'm thinking, for a smother mate, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Black had had a perfectly acceptable position until the rain of mutual blunders began. Nevertheless, it was a pity nobody noticed the game at the time. It might have completely changed the 19th century landscape of chess, though. So it would have, like Alekhine, another hypermodern opening that Alekhine talked about was this here. So we're gonna just pull up. I'm gonna call it hypermodern. Let's see, hypermodern openings. This is a game between. Oh, and actually, there's a game that it goes with. E4, knight f6, d3, c6, f4, a5, takes, knight c3, f to g4, d4, queen h check, g3, queen f6, knight h3, knight f3 check, king e2, knight takes d4 check, and king d3. Of course, I know you see that this only would lead to a type of checkmate. Oops, that's not checkmate. Loses that actually wins a piece, so he has to run. If they tried that, still it loses a piece. So knight e5, king takes d, bishop c5, king takes, queen b6, king d5, and then queen to d6 is checkmate. Not d, queen d6. It's checkmate. I don't know if Algren saw this game, but he analyzed knight. Maybe. Oh, I have the date wrong. It's not. It wasn't 1900. 1802. There we go. How are we doing so far? Okay, perfect. There we go. A4, knight f6, a5, d5, d4, d6, f4, bishop b3, bishop f5, knight c3, a6. There's a bishop here, and then d5. An older main line was actually bishop here, castles, castles, f6, e takes, bishop takes. When black's pieces pressure against the center, create a position with more or less equal chances for both sides. Pegueron avoided the balance game that a bishop e2 offers, and instead tried to use the central pawns to push black right off the board. E takes, pawn takes, knight b4. Suddenly white's pawns have high stepped into enemy territory, and d5 is about to be treated as a snack for the knight. White's pawn center looks more posing than ever, but its demise is soon. Means that he has to attack with all of his might. It is too late to basically reverse back to a quiet positional play. Now pure dynamic leads the dance, are the setting. So dynamic play is the only way now. So that's the only thing right now that could be done is knight b4, knight d4 has to be played here. So everything has to be forcing, attacking the bishop on f5 and defending c2. Bishop d7. The more natural bishop g has shown to lose by force. So the more natural this appears to actually lose by force. So they played that. Queen to f3, defending d and threatening a2 to a3 now. Now it's black's turn to show some entertainment. He plays c5. Exclaim. Black's like, you think you're gonna get all the play? Knight to c2 would follow if the d knight moved. White has no choice but to capture black's c-pawn, thereby destroying what remains of his once mighty center. In passing, b takes c, and then now he's got no choice but to just basically jam the pawn down the board, trying to keep black's king in the center for as long as possible. a3, then c5. A takes, bishop takes, and castles. That is fine for black. Bishop d3, bishop c6. Exclaim. Because you're thinking, oh, I went a free. Nope. Boom. And you can actually take here, and white's position's wrecked. So f takes, castle kingside. There's not a white center pawn in sight. d6 to d5. a3. Knight takes c. Knight takes e6. This actually threatens mate, by the way. This move threatens mate. Because if the knight retreats out, then there's checkmate. So the knight actually has to keep with checks. And so there's nothing like the smell of good attack over the board. You gotta love it. Knight C to A2. King B1. Bishop takes. Rook takes check. Rook takes. A takes B4. Knight takes B4. Bishop E2. Rook F8. Queen H5 check. G6. Queen E5. Bishop F5 check. King A1. Rook D5. B8 check. King F7. White didn't like what was about to happen to him after Queen takes A2. Knight C2. King A2. Knight takes. Will be behind in material if he doesn't recapture. Excuse me. Queen takes. Rook A. King B. Rook B8 check. Is no less painful. King C3. Bishop F check. King D2. Rook takes B check. King E1. Rook A1 check. King F2. And rook takes, and basically it's over. It's over. Of course, over the years, the strategy behind basically smashing, taking if somebody has a big center, smashing open and disintegrating the center has developed. Eventually, it was understood that aside from trying to shatter the center and go after the pawns, one could force the center to advance and make use of the newly weakened squares these advances often created. These ideas can be used against all sorts of pawn centers, no matter what opening they may arise from. However, let's return to the Grunfeld defense for example. I think probably we'll call it right here. Well, let me see. I think we can do one more. One more. And then I know I said we'd be done after this one, but just one more should do it. And then I do have to log off. Yep. D4, knight F6. So we're gonna try to be really efficient with this game here. C4, G6, knight F3, D5, C takes, knight takes, A4, takes, pawn takes, bishop G7, bishop C4, oops, not F4, C4, C5, 92, castle, castle, knight C6, Queen C, no, bishop E2, or E3. Queen C, C7, Rook C1, Rook D8. Is White's space gaining center strong or weak? This position exudes a wonderful sense of balance and teamwork. White has a huge pawn center, but Black is taking aim at it with everything he can muster. Note that he's not just attacking randomly, he's doing his best to beat down d4. This is being carried out by Black's star-squared bishop, his c-pawn, his knight, and then his rook on d8. Many pieces, one goal. Many pieces, but one goal is what Black has in his mind. All the pieces are working together for one goal. The goal is to attack d4. On the other hand, White wants to make his center indestructible. If he can do that, he can then squeeze his opponent and eventually turn Black's helplessness into an attack on the wing. R, break through the middle. Thus he is meeting Black's aggressive strategy against d4 with his own tightening of the pawns. His c-pawn, dark-square bishop, knight, and queen are all holding the life and limb together of the pawns. So h3. The timid f4 can be met by bishop. So if this timid move, bishop to what did I? Oh boy, I have that wrong move there. I appreciate your patience. This is what they were talking about right here. And then h3. The timid, this move here could be met by bishop g4. h3 actually prepares f2 to f4, preventing bishop f4. So b6. Now f4 can be played. e6, queen e1, bishop b7. This is the game is an example of what happens when a central advantage creates holes that the opponent can make use of. However, here's another classic classic game that leads to a different central outcome. We're going to do a quick little look at this here. Knight a5, bishop d3, f5, exclam, g4, exclam, f takes e, bishop takes e, b7, knight g3, knight c4, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop f2, queen c6, e2, c takes d, c takes d, and b5, and the white center has been torn down, and Black enjoys the more pleasant position. However, Spassky, who had white, played extremely well from this point on, while Bobby Fischer pushed for a win even after his advantage had vanished, and ultimately paid the price. So this position here is white is Bobby. 94. Bishop takes. Knight g5. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Rook d6. Rook e1. Queen b6. Knight e4, which is actually a dubious move by Boris. Rook rook to c. Oh, Bobby did a dubious move. Hold on. A6. Oh no, nope. That was Boris, not E. No, 94 is okay. Oh, it was Bobby's. Yeah. Rook d4 was the dubious move, not Boris's move. This one was. Rook to c6 would have left Fischer with all the chances. Would have been a slam. Knight f6 check. King h8. Queen takes. Rook d6. Queen e4. Rook f8. Was actually another dubious move from Bobby. G4, Rook d2, Rook f1. Good, how you doing? Alright. 1 second. 1 second, guys, I'll be right back. Hold on. I appreciate your patience. Okay. Let's get back into this. So Rook d2. Where are we? Oh, right, Rook d2, move 31. Rook f1. Queen c7, which is a mistake by Bobby. Rotates rook, knight takes, queen d4, rook d8, knight d5, king g8, rook f2, knight c6, rook e2, d6, oops, not takes, rook e8, king f, and then rook to f8. And Boris actually won this one here. Because I know you see the idea, so this boom. So at this point This is the, I'll put a thing, that's the only move. The continuation would have won the queen. F2, queen F2 here. White is just worse after this, so the natural F5 needs to be played, however it wasn't. And knight to A5, bishop there, E takes, then rook E8. And interesting position, for sure, knight A, bishop there, and F5, exclaimed by black. So now black's the one that's pushing the mood. An enormously important move that does many useful things. It continues to attack white's center. If F4, white's whole attack is based on F4 to F5, which is blocked by the dark square bishop, knight, queen, and F, and basically the F pawn. Oh, if which in turn blocks the dark. Okay. Oh, I see. This is what they're saying. If he can't get this pawn moved here, it blocks the dark square bishop, the knight, queen, and the rook on F1, so everything's blocked. Very bad position. E5. Knight G3 could be played, but then queen D7, and the game's about equal. So here, C4, bishop C, knight C6. Black is better. White's king side attack has been basically gone, and his pieces are nothing. Basically, white's pieces are all locked in. They're on pawns. The C3 pawn, the D4 and F4. The bishop on C2 is of no effect. The bishop on E3 is no effect. The knight on E2 is no effect. The queen is nothing. Black, on the other hand, has a mobile queen pawn majority. Light square bishop that seems more laser beam than chess piece, basically, because look how much power it has. And the knight that can set up shop on D5. Right here, the knight can. Let's get a drink of water and then we'll continue. G4. This loosens up the H1 to A8 diagonal and thus puts his own king in jeopardy. However, it was either this attempt on the king side's counterplay or a passive waiting around to get mated. 92 or 97. A good place for the knight to keep an eye on the king side pawn structure while threatening to leap into D5. King H2. Queen C6. This move speaks for itself. The problem of white faces along the H1 to A8 diagonal takes on concern from here on. Knight H3, B5. Note that black isn't worried about G takes F5 because E takes F5. Though this leaves white with two connected past central pawns, why wouldn't white be delighted with such an event? The answer is the passed pawns aren't very useful if they can't be pushed. And in this position, the D pawn will be not pushed at all. If it ever dares to move to D5, for more on passed pawns, we'll see section 8. That's what we're going to be going into pretty soon. So A4, A6, rook B1, rook A to B1, or B8, bishop d2, and then b takes a, which is actually a dubious move by black. Black should have just kept the tension. Black opened lines on the queen side, thinking that he is the one that can profit from it. However, white's pieces also gain a bit of activity. And in general, one should not allow the opponent anything if he can be bound and helpless. Instead, he should have put this move off for a moment and played this favorable move here, and then you could have taken. This strange looking retreating action has a clear cut point. By getting the bishop out of the B rook's file, black can threaten to play b takes c now. Depending on the 25th move, he has ideas like rook to d2 that could be played for black if white moves the rook off the b file, or exchange the rook with rook to b6. Sometimes occurs in actual games. These ideas are more or less forced. And a takes gives black two new targets. He can play for b5 push, and then knight to d5, b4 to b5, or b5 to b4. Turns the c pawn into a passive pawn, and he can get the bishop off a8, followed by rook to a8, and play for infiltration down the a file. The rest of the game no longer serves our theme, but still is fully interesting. So let's finish this really fast, and then I gotta log off. Oops, wrong. Rook there, bishop a, takes, queen c. B3 exclam. Let's see here. Bishop b2, knight e3, exclam. Let's see, f8-1, there we go, knight c3, knight c4, sorry, knight to g3, and bishop e7, trying to get some activity. Bishop c6, attack the rook, takes, queen to h1, check, king g, and then h5, and white actually resigned, black actually resigned, no, white resigned here, threatening h4 mate, and any move that the white queen gives, then it allows checkmate with the bishop. So that's the whole game there. We're going to wrap up with what we learned. Pawn center is very important. You can try to get a big one, but if you can't provide proper defenses and hold it, it becomes more of a liability than an asset. And in that scenario, you can actually lose by your pawn center being disintegrated or annihilated. So you just got to make sure when you push your pawn center that you have enough defenders to protect it. And just keep an eye on it. Remember, you know what? Chess is fun. Have fun always. And remember, you know what we talk about is always take what you know, be able to apply it, be willing to do something with it. And what we talked about too is this, that in the end we have to decide, because if you don't have a good structure or foundation, you will fall apart. If you build your house on sand instead of the rock of ages, then when the wind or water hits it, it's going to fall apart and your house's foundation will break. That's why you have to receive the Lord Jesus. It's important as Lord and Savior of life. One day you got to decide what you're going to do, because eternity is forever. And it's better to be on the side of the Lord Jesus. Things may, in life not be easy, but I gotta tell you, they're so worth it. What's worth fighting for is what's worth keeping. So just keep that in your forefront. That's why you got to treasure your victories, learn from your losses. Remember that mistakes do not define who you are. It's how you handle the mistake that defines who you are as a chess player and a person. And that's where the Team Chess Cruncher motto comes into play. We hang up our coats, we hang up our hats, we sit down and study when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says, through the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. And Lord willing, we'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing forward. Remember, even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. And when you find it, you get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, I wanted to inform you that I'm not going to be on till Thursday. So I will see you then. Got some stuff I have to do. So just keep pushing forward. The Chess Cruncher motto way: study, do your work, and always be honoring the Lord Jesus. So I will be back on Thursday night, and I will see you then. Go Team Chess Cruncher. Hoorah. Be blessed. Bye-bye, team.